Right
Okay,
on.
so let's kick things off and with Prince and the Revolution, right?
That's
I
right.
think I
They're
saw
still,
this is their second credited album.
yeah, it's still
Uh,
with Prince of the Revolution. I guess 1999, even though some of the members of the Revolution were on it, I think they were just vocal. I think they just did vocals for that. I don't think they played any instruments, but that one is just a Prince album. And it's actually interesting when you look at, if you try to look this up on Spotify. I know you don't do Spotify, so I don't know. What do you do? Amazon Music or?
yeah,
Where do you,
yep.
So I don't know, like if you just search Prince on Spotify, this album doesn't come up because it's Prince and the Revolution. So it's one of those stupid things where you're like, oh, the computer's not picking up on that. So
Yeah, and in Amazon Music, it's just under Prince, so I had no problems finding it.
yeah.
Um,
So well, I'll run some numbers here first.
Yeah.
So this is Prince and the Revolution with Around the World in a Day. It comes in at number 205 in the 1980s on Best Ever Albums, number 18 in 1985. Number 1,286 of all time. It's Prince's, or it's just, of all the Prince albums, it's his sixth highest rated album on Best Ever Albums. We've covered actually Purple Rain, 1999, and Dirty Mind. And we're going to cover Sign of the Times. And we did not cover we did not. Are we going to cover Parade? I don't know. Maybe we're going to cover Parade too. So maybe we'll get to all these.
We are covering Parade.
We are not covering Parade. I stand corrected. So there you go. And Prince comes in at number 83 of overall. I'm sorry, Prince is number 42 of overall artist rankings on Best Ever Albums. And yeah, this is the 18th album of 1985. We're going to cover at least 18 albums in 1985. So that's pretty impressive. So
I know, right smack dab. I mean, it's 18 albums for any year is a lot, but I guess it's a testament to how good 85 is.
Yeah.
We're hitting
I think we got a bunch
of
of
things.
I think we got a bunch in 86 as well, but hey. Anyway, so Josh, do you want to do the take on this first? What do you want to just go off, or what do you think?
Yeah. I just thought of an essential question. What is the best year that we've covered in music? That would be an interesting one to look at.
I have no idea. I have no freaking. I'm sure John does.
John could heads out there.
Let me pull up my chart and give you the numbers on this. See, John, not the numbers guy. John sure has the numbers on his charts and stuff. I'm sure he could tell us in like the drop of a hat.
He does like stats.
He does. He doesn't like. He likes stats, not numbers. He likes stats. There's a big difference, Josh.
There's math involved in one, not the.
Yeah, the other one's just arbitrary. So
yeah. And so I think based on my limited knowledge of Prince, I think this is kind of where this album he starts to lose some popularity. I was reading a little bit about Sign of the Times because I will be hint covering that for Josh's movie corner. And
that's a movie?
Yeah, they put out a music documentary / movie about it, and in reaction to the album doing that poorly. Strangely. So I don't think they would not do that nowadays. I'll tell you.
So the movie exists because the album didn't do well?
Yeah, so they're trying to build word of mouth and kind of recoup, I guess. In some ways.
I am intrigued to learn about that because my understanding, Sign of the Times was always, I don't know the album, but I always remembered it as being highly regarded as one of Prince's best. Some even say it's better than Purple Rain, I think. So
yeah, and I haven't seen the movie, so I'll report back, obviously. But I'm curious about that as well. So I think point being, by the time we hit the end of the 80s, he is doing the Batman soundtrack, and that is he works with Warner Brothers, I think, throughout all of his career or most of his career, and that's a Warner Brothers movie, and I think that is also a reaction to trying to regain some of that popularity and stuff with that soundtrack. So anyway, back to this album. I thought I really liked this album. Well, that's a qualified. I really liked it. I thought he's definitely experimenting. Some of the big keywords that came to mind are psychedelic. I felt like that was definitely here. I feel like he's expanding his kind of sonic palette almost in the way that the Beatles did when they went to India or something, and discovered all of those instruments and sounds. I feel like he's incorporating some of those types of Eastern Eastern instruments or Indian instruments or Asian instruments, I should say. But then he still has that kind of backbone of funk and, his predilections for sexual deviancy or behavior. And
he still likes his sex.
And the Revolution here is in top form, I think. Is the Revolution just a catch-all term, or are there actual consistent people of the Revolution?
I think there's consistent people.
Okay.
No, I think there's consistent, and then he gets rid of them, and then he gets another band called the Power Generate. What is it? Oh, Prince and the. Oh crap! I got to look this up now. Keep going, Josh.
So anyway, I thought, and this was an album for me too that got better the more I listened to it. I was kind of ho-hum on it the first time through, and but there was songs that deepened for me, and I appreciated more on subsequent listens. The big hit on here is that everyone would know is Raspberry Beret, and I would say that's for sure the strongest track on here. Mm-hmm. It's hard. That's just a jammer, just like all of Purple Rain, pretty much, and many of his other famous hits that he's done. But I also think that there's some good deeper cuts on here, and I didn't hear anything else, or I haven't heard anything else on this album before. So pretty much a fresh listen for me. But he has other tracks I liked were Around the World in a Day, which is the title track and the first track on the album. I really liked Paisley Park. It's kind of got this like slower tempo that kind of builds throughout the listen, and really is a song that you can sing along to, and it just has some great guitar in it. And then later tracks on the back half of the album that I really liked were America. That was it's hard not to love that song. It's got such a great backbeat to it, and the lyrics, I'm going to be the de facto lyrics guy since John isn't here this episode, and I wrote some lyrics down for all the albums actually, but America specifically talks about nuclear war and communism, and it's got a sense of humor basically about things, even though I think it's trying to make a point as well. But Jimmy's living on a mushroom cloud at the end of one of the lyrics, and it's just talking. It's got a great chorus as well. It's just fun to sing along to. And then Pop Life, I think, was the other big single off of this album, and that was also fun to sing along to. It's got his signature, great guitar sound on it. It's got his signature yell that he does, references to sex, and I would say it's feels a bit more I don't know. It feels a bit more experimental in some ways than Sign of the Times, the Purple Rain.
Purple Rain. Yeah.
So I can see why people might not have taken to this, especially after. I mean, Purple Rain is such a huge success. Yeah. It's hard to follow up with that, but. The synths and the electronic nature of this album too are also in fine form and make a return here. But what did you think about Prince?
Yeah, so I very much like you. I only knew Raspberry Beret on this record before this week, mm-hmm. And it's definitely. I mean, I don't want to make this sound like a knock, but it's definitely a step down from Purple Rain. I mean, Purple Rain, the highs on Purple Rain are as high as you can. I mean, when you got When Doves Cry and Purple Rain and Let's Go Crazy, it's just, and everything else in between, it's just that's just a classic record. This one,
right.
I did like this one though. I would say that I liked this. I definitely liked this better than 1999 for the sheer reason that it's not a double album. Yeah. There are some long songs on here, but not nearly what they were on 1999. And I thought that there was some experimentation here, but there was also it was just, at the same time I felt like in some ways it was also straightforward. And for the most part, I liked every song. I think the only song on here that I was kind of not so hot on was Condition of the Heart. That's the third track. It's a longer track at almost 7 minutes, and it's like this. I guess it's like a ballad, but it doesn't really. There's other ballads on here. Like I really like the latter. The penultimate song on this is the way that it builds, and it's just got a very. I think is that about ascending to heaven? Is that what's going on in that song, Josh? Did you pick? John would know.
I think it's more about kind of like the struggle of life.
Okay.
And kind of trying to overcome that, but I didn't really pay too close attention on that song.
Fair enough. But I think that but that was kind of more of a ballad that had that build that I found was much more interesting. And Condition of the Heart was just a little flat for me.
It's on piano in that song, and that's kind of the main instrument.
Which I'm fine with the piano. But it's like, what are you doing with it? Or what are you doing with the melody? And it just didn't really. Every time that song came on, I was like, ugh, like it never, didn't really do much. But
that was a long song too.
Yeah.
650 almost.
It didn't need to do that. But then it goes right into Raspberry Beret, and you're like, and then you forget about what you just went through. So at least I did, But I really liked America. I thought Pop Life was great as well. That was he's bringing the funk back on that track. Temptation, the last track was interesting. That's his sex song, or the big sex song. And it's one of those things where probably about 5 or 6 minutes of it is a pretty cool, like interesting, like there's a lot of cool instrumentation happening there, and the production is different. That track definitely stands out. And then the last couple of minutes are just like him. He's moaning or making like sound, and then like there's like these weird cacophonous sounds happening in the background, and I'm sure he's mimicking the sexual acts and all that stuff. But like, I don't know, I don't need that in my music, so I could probably stop, with a couple of minutes left to go there. But overall, I found the album. I mean, there's 9 tracks on here. It's like 40 some odd minutes. It's fairly concise, even though there's a couple of longer tracks on here, but there's some shorter ones as well. Tambourine was interesting. It was just kind of, that was a cool song, but just kind of, started, and then it was like, okay, we're good. Like, let's move on.
Tambourine's got this weird, like, jagged nature to it. That's how I described it. It's funky. It's got some electronic synths to start, I think, or keyboard or something. And that was another one that kind of grew on me the more I listened to it.
Yeah, I think a lot of this did, but then some stuff like, I don't know, Paisley Parks, like I like that too, because it was very bouncy. It just had this kind of bouncy nature to it, but very accessible overall. And I think I don't know much about like where Prince's head was, or what the his goals were, messages or whatever, but it certainly wasn't like, even though there were some good singles on here, it's more of it's not as bombastic and like in your face as much as Purple Rain was, but it's still really solid. And I don't know if I liked this better than Dirty Mind. Maybe I like Dirty Mind a little bit better, but I like both of these better than 1999. So I liked it. I would just do without Condition of the Heart. Maybe the last couple of minutes to Temptation. But other than that, I don't think I would change much. And I did pick up on like the Eastern instrumentation. I don't know what it was. I'm looking on Wikipedia here. Normally they tell you what instruments were used and who played them, and they don't list that here for some reason.
It's very this album is very sparse in terms of kind of the notes in Wikipedia on terms of production, which I always like seeing that stuff, especially when I can't recognize an instrument, and so that was a little disappointing.
Or it's just cool seeing like who every now and then a producer or a musician that played on that. It's like, Phil Spector played on this or whatever, like little things like that. But yeah, this was it was good. It was a nice listen for this week in a relative. I mean, I think we decided to do this 5 days ago, so I didn't give as many listens as I normally would have. But I'm thumbs up on. I like Prince.
Yeah, I think, I said that this was kind of the start of his decline, and I'm going to take that back a little bit, because this album still went double platinum, and it was just in comparison to Purple Rain.
Right. Yeah, it's hard to call that a decline when it's just like, you follow this huge, album. It's not like he totally went into in a totally different direction. I mean, he's got Raspberry Beret is probably one of his biggest hits. That's I don't know, is that a top 5 Prince hit? It's up there. If it's not top 5, it's definitely it's definitely top 10, I would say. In a sea of and what is a sea of huge hits for him. Raspberry Beret is it's really solid. It's really good. So
yeah. Also, I saw that Prince didn't want this album to be marketed and published, or did not have a lot of publicity. So it kind of, I think that contributed to maybe why there probably wasn't like a buzz to it when it was released. The studio, complied with his wishes, and even the singles didn't come out until after the album came out. So there wasn't kind of this build after Purple Rain.
Not the promotion as much. Yeah, it's interesting because looking at the album cover when I first saw it, I was like, I've never seen that before. But I've been, even though I didn't know the album that well, I knew this cover of Dirty Mind. I knew the album cover of Parade in 1999 inside in the Times. But this one I was like, I'd never seen that before. What is this? So I guess because of that, I wasn't expecting much, because I was like, well, if this album was worth anything, I probably would have recognized the cover, right? Like that. So, but no, it was a nice listen.
Yeah, he said that about the cover album, he thought people might be sick of looking at him, so he picked something different.
Well, he certainly went a 180, because it's not like when Prince puts himself on a cover, he certainly puts himself. I mean, it's not just him in a shirt, or it's like. It's him with clothes off at various stages of undress. So, yeah. It
did kind of remind me of the Talking Heads album this week as well, the Little Creatures. Just in terms of, I guess it's color palette or something. I don't know.
The cover of the album, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there was actually a couple of times where I clicked on I'm like, let me listen to Talking Heads, and I clicked on Prince's album by accident, because in Spotify they like most recently played, so they appear next to each other. So that's a good point. Yeah, that happened to me a couple of times.
Yeah, the art is kind of almost has this like mosaic style in some ways. I could see it like being put together with little pieces of paper or something.
Or it's almost like fuzzy felt or whatever, one of those children's kind of artistic things that they just put together. So yeah, it does look very childlike in that regard.
Yeah, just another Prince's. We've covered 4 of his albums, and.
This is 4, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, he's such an interesting artist. He kind of is a chameleon in some ways, because everything is written and all instruments are played by Prince. I think it often says on the cover, and he's just so prolific, and it's hard to. I'm sure there's some good biographies out there on him.
Oh God!
And after his death.
I'm sure there's good dissertations on him.
Yeah, he just has massive output, and he's kind of singularly himself in terms of certain hallmarks of his style, but he also is willing to kind of branch out in a lot of ways.
And he also has, after he died, like just the amount of material that he recorded and never released is supposedly astronomical. Like you could probably release a new Prince album every year and for the next 30 years or whatever, just have new
crazy
stuff. So, yeah.
So good stuff.
Yeah.
I'd say it's worth checking out. Don't overlook this just because it's not as big as.
No, it's got more deeper cuts. It's a deeper cut album, but worth a listen for sure.